Hi, I'm Simon from Tenkin Studios. So today I'm going to talk about the 80-20 rule and how it applies in particularly vibe coding development. I think it's an important thing that a lot of sort of new developers get unstuck with. And what it really refers to is it takes probably 20% of your effort to get 80% of the way there. So when you're developing your new app and you might be using a platform like Lovable or something, and you go, wow, it's all there, and actually you've built something that probably looks alright, got a bit of workflow, but will have lots of problems under the hood, maybe a bit of a janky workflow, and it could be tons of user errors. So I think it's something important to think about when you're developing apps is, firstly, that last 20% takes 80% of effort, and really that's where your domain knowledge comes in. So that's where you really want to understand software in a better way. So even vibe coding, understand a bit of software architecture and what that looks like. What does a good app architecture look like? What does scalability look like? So how are you going to scale your app? What the costs going to be? Are you keeping an eye on your costs? Because one of the things that we definitely found was we had basically a notifier which notified people or reminded people when to take medications or when their planner thing was due. And the problem with that was that it was keeping the server on all the time. So then what you're getting is this quite a massive compute cost with that. So part of your thing is looking at not only your app once you get that all wired up and working, but what is your more DevOps side of keeping your app running, keeping it cost efficient, keeping an eye on stats and figures. I think there seems to be a lot of fire and forget software at the moment where people vibe code it, send it out, and just assume it'll be okay, but you've got to put a lot of work into that. And it's certainly something that we found with Tenkin is that now, as we are getting to the stage where everything in Tenkin is rolling out, and our first users are coming in, that's when our bug levels are going up, because it's the reality of any software. There's lots of stuff, despite all the tests we've done, there's always going to be things that we hadn't thought about, or even features that we go, actually, that's like a vital feature that we'd missed. So we are investing loads of time into getting that out. And I think one of the things to be really cautious of, and we started with this, was Lovable seemed a great solution early on because it was just easy, and you just put your database in the cloud or your AI in the cloud, everything in their provision. But the problem was once Lovable started to get unreliable, then actually all your eggs are in one basket, and to move off that platform is incredibly difficult. So you're basically porting your database and your app across to different structures. Well, what you want to look at really is for redundancies, having a more distributed structure so that you can host your app in another provider, you can move your database to another provider, and provide 0 to limited time of downtime for users so that your impact to users is next to nothing. And that's really what you want, because the reality is there's a war going on. What if a data center's hit? How do you, in one of your main services go down, how are you dealing with that? How are you coping with that? Even if your app's small, these are important considerations that you want users to have that solid experience, don't you? So that's where that 80-20 comes in, is really think about it when you're doing your app. Think about actually when you're getting towards the end of it, that's when the pressure mounts, there's going to be a lot more work to do, and just keep that in focus. Keep that in focus. And I think whilst deadlines are important, one of the things that I've definitely reflected on in Tenkin, and so is sort of David, as we've chatted about it, is that deadline's probably the wrong word, is like a target. So it's good to have target time, but see if you breach that target, because actually when you've opened the box and that 80% starts coming at you, and it's a lot more complex than you think, or you've got issues that you didn't think about, and it's a bit whack-a-mole, that's just the reality of engineering. You're doing software engineering, even if it's vibe engineering, that's what you're doing. So I think just be prepared for that, and that's okay. I think there's a real danger, and I think a lot of people are finding this, is that with the speed of AI, the way the technology is changing, is that what we do is we start to try and ramp up and accelerate what we're doing, and that's leading to burnout for a lot of people. Even just keeping up with the technology is so difficult because every day it's changing. So I think it's give yourself a break. Is that if your app takes another few weeks to complete and roll out, then do that. If you want to get early adopters and just be honest and say, hey, you know what, you might encounter some bugs, but we're going to fix them for you, is have that honesty. And for us, that has to be about providing this great service without burning people out. I think there's a lot in the software industry at the moment, and as much as it's a great industry to be in, and it's generally people-centric, burnout is so common. For me, I think burnout in that industry is probably more common than a lot of the other industries, certainly that I've worked in. So that's your 80-20. Just remember that on your journey, keep that into account. Think about how we're going to make sure that we've got the right resources, the right funding for the last bit. So that's it for me. Thanks for tuning in, and have a wonderful day.